Welcome back to Double Fries No Slaw, Sunday, May 18th. TJ Pinger and Richie Barnes here. Richie, how's your weekend been so far?
Good. Got to see an old friend who's in town from Pittsburgh for a work conference. So that was nice on Saturday. Just, church this morning. And now I'm unfortunately get to hang out with you in Harlan.
Well, better late than never. I wasn't going to bring that up, but you're the one that said, unfortunately, have to hang out with us. But, yeah, no, listen, we were in your neck of the woods or, closer than we normally are. I know that with I-4 traffic, it's still pretty far, but have you ever been to I know that when it's in kind of your town, you don't usually go. Have you ever played the course at the Omni there in Kissimmee?
Yeah. Champions Gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I didn't play anything. We just hung out at the pool with the kids. Have you ever gone to the pool or stayed at that resort?
No, just they have two really good courses, the National and the International. The International is my favorite because it's wider fairways, so I'm sure Harlan can appreciate that as well, where you lose less balls. But yeah, beautiful resort all overall.
Yeah, it is. The whole thing is phenomenal. Like that area is so nice. The kids love going there. The hotel's nice. A hotel's a hotel to me. It's whatever. But customer service is great. They do a great job there. But the pool area there's an adult pool which we've never gone to because I think the 5 or 6 times we've stayed there we always have the kids, and so we're not going to leave them in they're too little to leave in the room or anything like that. But the pool area is phenomenal. There's a big lazy river. There's a huge slide that the kids love going down there. There's some little kid slides too, which are great. There's a wave pool, and then the pool itself is just ginormous. And then they have there's a basketball court. There's a playground, so we play basketball with the kids. There's a playground area. There's mini golf. There's just a ton of stuff, which is really cool. And so, I don't know if you can tell or not, but I got some sun, had some fun out with the kids this weekend. My little guy turns 3 tomorrow. So
happy birthday to him, Brian, right?
No, Lincoln. Yeah. Lincoln's birthday tomorrow. 3 years old. So they're getting older, right? They're going to be 7, 5, and 3 this year. Oh, which is crazy. But his birthday starts off the 4 months of birthdays in our house. So yeah, we had a good weekend. But let's jump into the show. I know nobody came to listen to us talk about our weekends, but I will say the Omni, if you can catch it on, there's sometimes where it's pretty pricey, but I think we paid a little over $200 a night. Again, when you're factoring in the resort and the pool and everything, we never left. We went to dinner one night, but we never left. We just stay there on site. We've got a great coffee bar down at the bottom of, by the pool. It's really fun. And it, it's still, you pay a little bit more, but we didn't go to Universal or Disney or something like that. So I guess you are saving a little bit of money by just hanging out by the pool instead of going and doing all the other stuff Orlando has to offer. So
if you work for the Omni, reach out. We will gladly have you sponsor the show.
Now that I've given you a 2-minute commercial for free, we'd love for you to pay us for it, and we'll do it weekly. Or any hotels in Tallahassee that want to hit us up too. Yeah, I know you guys have the money from just game weekends alone. All right, let's jump into the show. Double Fries Also brought to you by Guthrie's in Tallahassee. We can shout out all 3 of their locations: 1818 West Tennessee Street, 2550 North Monroe, and 2870 Apalachee Parkway. Make sure that you are getting your gut boxes. Double Fries No Slaw. Softball in regionals right now. If you're heading out of town because you're up there watching, make sure you get a gut box on your way out. If you're going next weekend for Supers, assuming they can either come back in this game or win the second one, or if you're going for when baseball hosts regionals or whatever may end up happening, make sure that you are stopping by and getting a gut box. Graduations, orientations, all those things are also good times to grab you some fried chicken from Guthrie's. Richie, let's jump into things. Oh, I lost Richie. All right, he's back now. All right, so this is a better endpoint for you, Harlan. Richie, this weekend was ACC spring meetings. It was one of the more, you think about the last 3 that we've had. It was one of the more, what would you call it? Non-combative that they've been. Not that they've been super combative, but there's been so much unclarity about what's going to happen with the ACC and lawsuits and this, that, and the other that this year we didn't have that. This year we do have the ACC settlement. We do know what's going on. We do know kind of what is ahead with revenue sharing, lawsuits, things like that, at least for the next couple of years. And a calmer ACC meeting. But I do want to talk to you about something that Michael Alford has said. He said when I had him on a couple of weeks ago, and then he echoed it at the ACC meetings. I want to get your thoughts on NIL, the cap that he has talked about, and just see if you have any kind of concerns. This is not the quote he gave on here. This is what he said at ACC meetings. But he said, you have right now this 1 year, the chance to call it manipulate the cap. You can front load in the old system moving forward until the new cap takes place July 1st. So yeah, there's all kind of stories out there about how people are front loading agreements as much as you can, but this is the 1 year they can do that. They can manipulate the salary cap coming down, but once it gets into place next year, it'll be a hard cap. I like Michael Alford. I've got no complaints. He said something very similar when he was on with me about a week and a half ago, and we put that out. We played that video. Do you buy that? Do you think we have a hard cap coming? I'm not trying to get you to call. I'll have my thoughts too, so I won't put you out on a ledge to disagree or agree or whatever. But what are your thoughts on? Do you really think there's a hard cap coming?
No, not at all. I just don't see that happening. And even if there is a hard cap, there will be workarounds. That you were not allowed to pay players until a few years ago. And trust me, players were getting paid. Their parents were getting houses in Tallahassee or Chapel Hill or Athens, whatever you want to call it. There are workarounds that nobody will catch on to. And even if they do, it's not worth pursuing, because it would be literally every major college town in the country that has a major Power 5 college football program. So I don't see that at all. I think NIL, it's funny. I forgot to mention Friday, I had we have a biennial work conference, and our keynote speaker was Mike Krzyzewski. And, he kind of hinted that NIL was a huge part of the reason that he just wanted to get out, because even Duke basketball guys, even they feel like they cannot raise the funds they need to recruit at the level they were pre-NIL. So I think any program, I think Texas A&M, I saw a graphic of the money they spend. It's insane. So yeah, I don't see a hard cap ever happening. It's kind of like, there was a few years ago, the Saints were like, they're over like 73 million over the salary cap, but it just doesn't matter. They're just like, okay, well, it'll balance itself out over the years. I think that's kind of what NIL is going to look like.
Yeah. What's tough is, I saw an article, even just now, I think schools are trying to get ahead of this. And I have two points that I want to make, and I'd love to hear people's comments or thoughts about this so-called cap that we, may or may not be getting. But Tennessee's government has already started to address this, the state, yeah, right? Not the college, but they had a bill go into effect in which Tennessee will be able to, athletes in Tennessee will be able to receive compensation from NIL collectives until they're explicitly told otherwise by federal law, antitrust law, or a valid court order. And I think it basically says that in Tennessee, and what I would assume is that other states will follow. Tennessee's not going to be the only state that says that their kids can get paid whatever. I think that kind of starts to go in the face of, if a kid gets a $500,000 deal and Deloitte says, hey, that's not within market value, you can't pay that. In Tennessee, they're already jumping out ahead of it. Like, that doesn't even have to go to court. They're saying, no, they can. We don't care what this third-party auditing company says, this financial firm, we do not care. They can get paid whatever, unless federal law comes down to combat that, unless antitrust law comes down to supersede it. We're jumping out ahead of it. And like I said, I think other states will follow. I cannot imagine. I mean, Ohio State sues to make, Ohio sues to make sure that you can't plant flags in the middle of the field. They're certainly going to follow. And then so will every other state shortly thereafter.
This is going to the Supreme Court. Like, there's no doubt in my mind.
Well, maybe if the NCAA keeps fighting it, I don't even know if it'll go that far. I think they'll lose the NCAA will lose at the district court level. And then if they want to fight it up to the appeals court, and then if they want to fight, but I don't even know if I mean, if they want to go 0 for 3, that's fine, I suppose. But I
And we're
don't.
not.
I
Yeah,
don't even
well,
know if it'll go that far. Maybe if they want to keep trying to fight it, that's one thing. You know, Amanda Kristovich also tweets a lot of the business stuff on NIL. Tweeted this. For me, the most striking part of the memo, talking about the clearinghouse, is that it won't block players' NIL deals. Basically, is that if a deal is flagged by the clearinghouse as pay for play, the athlete can still take the money, just with the understanding that there's a risk of eligibility concerns, which would then cause the NCAA to say, hey, you took money that wasn't, you know, under the guidelines, right? Like you took money that we flagged as not within the guidelines, and the NCAA could certainly say that player is ineligible. I just don't think they will. I think the lawsuit that Tennessee and Virginia filed, the states, was it about a year ago, maybe a little less than a year ago, have already set a pretty clear precedent that you cannot penalize players for anything to do with NIL. And I don't think that's going to change. And so I'll ask again, kind of like I did at the beginning. I have a little bit of concern, and maybe Michael Alford is way ahead of this thing. Maybe his experience in the NFL is kind of what's leading him to this interpretation. I have a little bit of a concern with Florida State operating under a premise that there is going to be a hard cap, and the rest of college football, or the majority of college football out there, saying, no, we're paying whatever we want. That just gives me some concern, right? I don't know. Maybe Florida State changes. Maybe Florida State's right. I don't know. But that thinking worries me a little bit, if I'm being honest.
So I think you got to look at it from a 10,000 foot view. When you're in a position like AD Alford is, there's some things that you can say publicly while also in the back of your mind acknowledging, yeah, that's not the reality. Bobby Bowden never said, oh, we paid it X and X recruit this much money to get him on a visit. Antonio Cromartie is on the record saying he was paid over $15,000 just to go on a visit to bring his high school teammates, even though the college knew that he had no interest going there. So there's some things you can say publicly and some things you can't. And I think that's probably, I think, AD Alford is very business savvy, and he's going to be very careful what he says publicly. And by no means am I putting words into his mouth. Don't take away my field passes next time I get up to Tallahassee. But I think he also understands the landscape of college football and what every other school is doing. And he's made it clear the past year and a half, 2 years with this lawsuit against the ACC. He's not going to take any disadvantage against the other power programs that he does not have to take.
Yeah, no, I hope that's the case. It is such a stark contrast to hear, because to me, and I agree, like what you're saying, like that could be the case. If that's the case, I feel like I would just say nothing at all. I don't know that I would go so hard. Now again, I'm not the AD at Florida State, right? And there's a reason for that. If I wouldn't go so far the other way, right? If that was the case, I would probably just leave it a little more up like, hey, we're just waiting to see what the House does. We're evaluating all options. I would give more of a non-answer as opposed to no, we're going to do exactly the opposite. And then do what you said you weren't going to do, right? Like, to me, that would be the better way to play it. If you weren't, like, I don't know. I just wouldn't say it. I'd probably not address it so directly if that was the case.
I could see a concern where, a Georgia or even an Ole Miss or anyone who you're competing with for recruits could use that line against Florida State and say, hey, listen, this is what Florida State's mind thought is. Here's where we're at. Where do you want to go? If you want to get the most money, you can come here. Florida State already said this, we're going to have a hard cap, and that's it. So I could see where that would be a problem in terms of recruiting, which, I mean, are we really worried about getting worse at recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully not, right? Hopefully we don't drop down even more. I don't know, just a concern. We'll see how it ends up playing out. Again, there is the chance that he is completely right on this, and there is a hard cap. I don't think that's the way it's going to go. but again, I'm not an AD of a top 20 university, right? Like there's my idiot observation is maybe different. So I don't know. It's a concern. Again, I probably would prefer just a non-answer, which a lot of these guys are really good at, but then when we get non-answers, we complain that we got a non-answer about something.
Yeah, exactly.
So, maybe I just want my cake and want
We
to
do
eat
as fans. We always complain about anything.
But I do think that's interesting to say the least. And if Florida State's going to operate on a hard cap and the rest of college football isn't, we either need the courts to change their minds or we need them to, we need to have Harlan sliding McDonald's bags to people when they come through town. So don't take any off the top, Harlan.
Guthrie's bags.
Speaking of, no good transition there. So we'll just go to give Garden Gold some love. GardenGold.com, NOSLAW, NOSLAW for 15% off of your order. We appreciate Garden Gold, as always, for their support. Dude, I was looking at some of the retro stuff they've got this week. My wife's trying to get me into more hats. And so I'm like looking at, I'm like, look, it's already all falling out. Like I don't need to put a hat on every other day to speed up that process, but maybe that's why she wants me to cover it up. But anyway, I was looking at some of their vault type hats and stuff. Their selection is just so elite, and she's, all the time trying to get me to order more stuff from there. And that's not usually a problem. I'm usually pretty keen on doing it myself, but, GardenGold.com, the only place you should be shopping for FSU gear. NOSLAW, NOSLAW will save you 15% off. If you want softball stuff, if you want baseball stuff, obviously they've got all of that too. Let's jump into something else Norvell brought up at ACC meetings. We'll talk on two things. Jason Jenkins, Tennessee defensive line transfer. He was asked about him specifically. And Richie, we've talked a lot about, the depth chart, our thoughts, where we have concerns, where we feel good, where we have worries. I've talked a lot about defensive line depth, and I do think that it's something that will be very crucial for this team this year. Obviously, defensive line, just at times, not at times, all year was a pretty big struggle. And that obviously has to take a big step forward because Florida State's got to be able to stop the run. Feel better about the linebackers than we have in a while. Worry a little bit about the secondary, but I think that'll be a pretty good unit. But it all starts up front, and we know that having to take on, Bama's O-line, Miami's O-line, Florida's O-line, Clemson's O-line at some point this year, and then all the other teams you have to see as well. So Jason Jenkins, he was asked about him specifically. He said, "We'll see." That's going to be something that. He is progressing really well in his rehab. I haven't really gotten into what it was. I'm not going to, but to say he's ahead of schedule, I feel very good about where he is. I guess I'm asking you to read between the lines here on what his answer was. Do you think we'll have Jenkins when Alabama comes into town? Again, maybe kind of hinting that he's ahead of schedule and could be back. Do you think this is just him kicking the can down the road? Do you think this is gamesmanship, trying to have other teams preparing like he'll be there? What are your thoughts on the chances that Florida State does have him in the rotation when Alabama comes to town?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said gamesmanship, because I don't think he has any idea. I don't think Norvell has any clue if he will be available or not. He was brought in and was expected to compete for a starting position. Obviously Alabama has tape on him. They play Tennessee every year. So I think it's just Norvell putting words out there to really make Alabama think about, okay, who are we preparing for? Who's going to start? Who's not? Now, granted, first game of the season, it doesn't matter a ton because you're preparing for every possible, whatever might happen when toe meets leather in game one. It's not like a player gets hurt 1 week and then 6 days later you're getting ready for the next game. And you're not sure who's going to play, who's not. But I do think, the comments sounded positive, which I appreciate because I would love to have him available. Even if he doesn't win a starting job, just having him available is a big deal, especially against a team like Alabama. You commented on their offensive line. They are a bunch of, road graders. That's all Alabama is every single year, even post Saban era. So I'm not sure. I've not heard any inside information or anything on, who may be available, who's not. But I think it's Coach Norvell. I think he worded that perfectly saying the way he did, saying ahead of schedule to where now, okay, maybe you need to prepare for him, maybe you don't. It's just one of those things in sports that coaches do. It's like Belichick always had Brady on the injury report listed as questionable, and they had to make a new rule in the NFL about the injury reports because of that.
Yeah, I feel like it was more positive than not. I'll say that. Like, I do think I think you're right about like gamesmanship and kicking the can down the road and stuff like that. Trying to not get expectations up. But I felt like it was more positive than not. Although I will say this, not to take it completely to baseball, we've heard a positive update about Cam Leiter every single time he's been asked about it, right? Yeah. Like on the baseball side. So maybe coaches just do this. Maybe this is just what they do is they kind of give you that little bit of hope, and that, hope will kill a man, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit of what it is. But I felt like this was more positive than I was maybe expecting. And I think Jenkins would be a huge piece, even if he wasn't back for Bama. If you could get him back for that stretch run of, October's where I think it really lightens up. You play Miami first, but then I think you play Pitt, Wake, and Stanford in October. I think if you could have him back for that would be huge. Now, we know how difficult November is, but I think if you could have him back post Miami or even by Miami, I think you're still in really good shape there. I think if he was going to be out for the year, they would have already said that. Like, that would surprise me if he doesn't play at all. But obviously the earlier you can get him back, and, certainly against those monster offensive lines of, Miami and Bama still got a good one, even though they were tough. They underperformed last year. They've still got a better offensive line than, most of the schedule that we play. I think that would be so huge. But again, I took it as slightly more positive than negative. Like it gave me more hope. Maybe I'm just buying into too much. I don't think they would rush him back, but I also think that this was a better update than maybe I would have expected. And Norvell doesn't give a lot away in these things. Like, he certainly likes to. Now, I'll say this, not on Norvell specifically. I think the gamesmanship aspect of holding injuries back is pretty stupid in college football. Even when it's like you mentioned Brady, even when it's a quarterback. Because, like, say Castellanos, got hurt the week of the game, and they were able to keep that under wraps, and nobody knew about it. Does Bama need to prepare for? I'm not trying to call a kid out. Does Bama need to prepare for Brock Glenn? Like, do they need to prepare for Kevin Sperry? It's not like, oh man, Bama's going to waste a bunch of time preparing for Thomas Castellanos and Brock Glenn's going to roll out, and they're going to say, oh man, what are we going to do? We didn't prepare for this guy. So I've never really cared about that, and especially not a backup defensive tackle, right? Like, I like Jenkins. I think he's going to be very important for us, but I don't know that it matters that much in general. But for whatever reason, coaches love that gamesmanship aspect. They love the keeping their cards close to their vest or whatever. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's like when Manny Diaz would come out with his injury reports at Miami, and it'd be like upper extremity or lower extremity. Like, you would never put what the actual injury was. Some coaches are just different. They do it. We'll see. I'm sure North Carolina is going to have a lot of very interesting injury reports week by week this year.
All right, if you're watching this live, we'll go to our next one, Harlan. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you watch on replay, we certainly would appreciate that too. Hey, if you're not already, if you could go subscribe on like iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. I know that you guys, a lot of you just watch the YouTubes live. You don't ever even have to listen on iTunes or Spotify. But if you just subscribe, honestly, that does help a lot because the thing still gets sent to your phone, whether you listen to it or not. That is no big deal either way, but it certainly would help us in the big picture. Last thing, we'll talk about one other thing that Norvell said, and you can tell the offseason is in full spring when we're breaking down comments that coaches and ADs have made at ACC, not ACC kickoff, just ACC meetings. But he said this about Castellanos, and this really surprised me. Right? I know that
Tommy apparently is his name.
Yeah,
you gotta call him Tommy now.
Yeah, it's easier for you that way, or TC or whatever, Thomas, however you want to say it. But this did surprise me, and I think this was out of character for Norvell, and this is either going to be pretty boom or bust. But he said that he thought Castellanos was going to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football this year. I'll just shut up and let you give me your immediate reaction to that when you heard it.
2 years ago, I would have been like, okay, I would have been cautiously optimistic. And I still am cautiously optimistic. But last year, preseason, he told us that this offensive line was going to be one of the best he's ever had, and we couldn't run the ball for a damn. So I take everything he says publicly with a grain of salt, to say the least. I do think he has a skill set that really matches Gus Malzahn's offense, and I really, really like that. But why would you put that kind of pressure on that kid? Maybe he thinks he's like instilling confidence in Tommy. I don't know, but it just doesn't make any sense to me to come out here and say that, because we've all seen the tape. Yes, every Florida State fan, they've probably only seen him play once, and that was when he just roasted our defense in 2013 when Florida State came back or held on to win the game. But at the same time, my goodness, that those are very bold comments. And again, Norvell seems like a motivator. So I think that could be a big part of it. It's where he's just trying to, he understands that, Tommy is going to hear that quote. But at the same time, my goodness, I don't know, because if we're looking at week 6 and he's got, 8 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, that's going to resurface very quickly. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I see the pros of it, right? I see the pros of, like you just said, trying to instill confidence, trying to let your guy know that you're in his corner. You absolutely have his back. You are going to, you're going to believe that your guy, I mean, I want every player on Florida State's team to think that they're going to go to the playoff and win the ACC. And so, I certainly would not want a coach to say, well, we'll see what we've got. I do think there's an aspect of this that's a little bit, I don't know, because of last year. Yeah. That's where I feel like it's out of character for Norvell. They obviously whiffed incredibly bad on DJ Uiagalelei. Like, that was a terrible, terrible take. Was I okay with the take? Did I think that DJ was going to be much better than he was? Did DJ underperform even what he had done the last several years? Yes. And so, there's some grace that's maybe given with that. I certainly think that Florida State staff, at the very least, thought they would get what he had done at Oregon State with DJ Uiagalelei. The offensive line being bad and other things too. But you misevaluated last year's portal haul and the quarterback so poorly. And if we're being honest, they've misevaluated just about every single quarterback that they've recruited as well. Like, think about the quarterback issues that we've had at Florida State. Now, Jordan covered a ton of that up, and they get credit for getting Jordan from where he was to where he finished. No doubt about it. But look at what quarterback recruiting and then portaling has been here. They've not hit
Rodemaker. Real quick, Tate Rodemaker just signed with Western Carolina.
His very first quarterback. School. Yeah. Look at Chris Parson playing way down now. AJ Duffy at like a D3 school. Luke's a third stringer right now at Mississippi State, the worst team in the SEC. And so I'm not sure. I'm not like, oh, well, I'm glad Luke left us and he sucks. I don't care. But I'm just saying, like, all of their quarter. And so, listen, I'm telling you, Norvell's track record of evaluating quarterbacks at Florida State has been pretty bad. Like, it just has, right? And if you want to blame the QB coach as opposed to, I don't care, right? Like, whatever. Florida State's track record of evaluating quarterbacks over the last several years has been awful. A ton of credit for what they've done with Jordan Travis. Brock Glenn, third year in the system, it still can't. You're still in a situation where he's not able to do anything for you, right? You'll get another portal guy ahead of him.
Yeah, they didn't bring in Jordan Travis.
Right, yeah.
For all the things you want to say about Willie Taggart, he's the one who brought Jordan Travis in.
They get credit for developing him, but the evaluation process has just been garbage. And so
horrible.
To come out and say this guy is going to be one of the best, he is either going to look like a savant because Castellanos is going to have a real. If Castellanos throws for 2,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, and runs for another 800, scores 5 on the ground, that's a great year. That's a real. It's not like an elite year. I don't think he's in New York or anything like that, but that's a good year. We'll probably go 7-5 or 8-4. Right? That's a. I think all FSU fans would be happy with that year. I don't think he needs to throw for 3,500 yards for us to feel good. If he does that and then is able to change some games with his legs, then I think we'll look back and say, hey, Norvell was right? We lost some games to some teams that were better than us, but Norvell was right. He had a good year. This was a good take. But man, with their track record to make that bold of a statement, and we were just talking in the last segment about how coaches are always like, coaches, ADs are always like kind of shy with their words. They always try and give non-answers, like, oh, well, we like the way he's progressing. We like the way that he's clicking with his teammates. We like this, we like that, but don't say anything at all. Like, to me, that would have been more of Norvell's character. Now, I don't really care that he gave us something to talk about here in the middle of May when there's nothing. Right. So great. You can do this every week for all I care. I just think it's weird. I think it's different than I've ever seen Norvell be before. Right. He didn't say, I think Norvell kind of gets thrown on the bus for telling everybody that this was going to be the best team he's ever had or anything like that. He never come out and said that. Like, he said this was going to be bigger, faster, stronger, which all that stuff is measurable, right? Like, if you're lifting more weight, if you're running fat, they track speed, if they're bigger because they weigh more, taller and weigh more, whatever. All that's fine. He never said, like, we're going to come out and beat everybody's brains in and this team's going to be amazing. And because coaches are usually cautious with what they say. Shoot, did you see Hugh Freeze this week say, yeah, man, we need to make a bowl game? Like, in year 3, coaches like temper expectations. They're masters of it, and it frustrates fans. And I'm not frustrated by this with Norvell saying it. Again, I'm glad he said it. Made for good content. But I do think it's a departure from the normal, which makes me either think, man, he really has something here, or he really needs people to buy in. Like, he needs people to get excited about something, and he's just throwing a little bit extra on. I don't know. But I don't think it's bad. I'm not upset with Norvell saying this, but I kind of agree with you. We could get like 6-7 weeks into this thing and think, dude, this guy can't evaluate quarterbacks for crap. And I hope that's not the case. I want to win games. I want to be 7-0 to start this year. I want to be 12-0. I just think it's weird.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting, because he's getting ready to, really hit the meat of the booster tour coming up. So he needs to hype boosters up because, part of being a head football coach, which sucks, but it is part of your job. You have to be a fundraiser. And if people don't believe in you, you're not going to raise money. That goes for any job, any position, for any company. Like, if people do not believe in you, they're not just going to give you money. So he's trying to build some belief. I think he knows he's on the hot seat right now. I think there's probably been some uncomfortable conversations with Alford, and I think he's just doing everything in his power that he can do at this point. But at the end of the day, it's going to come to what happens on Saturdays come this fall.
I agree. And I get it. I understand hyping it to do exactly what you just said. We all got incredibly frustrated with when Willie did that, right? When Willie said, oh, this team is, all this stuff. And then when Norvell came in, this is why I think it's such a departure from his character. I'm not saying it's good or bad. When Norvell came in, it was, hey, we're going to take the steps. We're going to do the work. We understand where this program has been. We understand where they're at right now and where we're going to try and get. But he kind of set us up for like, hey, man, this is a rebuild. This is going to take some time. And it took 3 years, right, for them to turn things around. And that's why I think it is so different than anything he's ever really done before. And proof will be in the pudding. You go out and upset Alabama, man. We'll revisit that quote in a very positive way. You start the year 2-4, we won't do it, but everybody else will revisit that quote in a pretty negative light. Softball couldn't come back against Auburn there, so they play a little bit later. Baseball, the 2 seed in the ACC tournament. Golf, very quickly, women's golf is currently 5th in the NCAA championships. One more round after today to go, and then they start match play if they can finish in the top 8. That's all my quick roundup of everything that's going on outside of football. Oh, and men's golf won the Tallahassee regional, not unexpected, playing at home, but they will start the NCAA championships next week. Richie, any shout outs or anything from you before we go?
How about Makai Dancy? Set an ACC
Oh, that's a
record.
good one. Yeah.
Yeah, so Florida State wide receiver also runs track for Florida State. Set an ACC record in the 400 meters with a 44.38. It's a ACC overall and a meet record. So something to look forward to. So, Tommy's got someone that he can hopefully just gun the ball downfield to. Let's just do that like I do on College Football 25.
Have you seen that meme? Just, F it, throw it at, somebody's down there, or maybe that's it. I talked to somebody yesterday about him maybe returning kicks. I don't know if that's obviously, but you got to be able to field them. But him at kick return.
We have a Marvin Bracey, Kermit Winfield. No, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't really correlate, is that just because you're an elite sprinter does not mean you're an elite kickoff or punt returner.
Yeah, but it could.
It could. It worked out. It worked out with Kermit in Pasadena.
Right? Yeah, we need a spark, man. Put him back there. Let's go. All right, we appreciate you tuning in. I know we did it right in the middle of the softball game, but have other stuff going on today too. So we will talk to you guys soon. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We will talk to you later. Go Noles.
Go Noles.